Welcome to the Build Your Private Practice podcast, a space for Canadian therapists who want to support others, make an impact, and build a sustainable practice that works for them too. I'm your host, Leanne Wood, a registered psychotherapist, group practice owner, and business mentor, and I'm here to help you build a private practice that allows you to keep doing the work you love without burning out. Because the people who need your help the most are counting on you, and you deserve a practice that supports you while you support them. Let's dive in. Welcome back to the Build Your Private Practice podcast. I am so glad you're here. When we think about numbers in private practice, most of us go straight to one season, tax time. But your numbers tell a much bigger story. And when you know how to read them, they can become one of your most powerful tools for making confident, grounded decisions all year long. And so today we're going beyond tax season with Jami Monte, fractional CFO, bookkeeping educator, and founder of Chillbooks. She's here to show us how simple financial rituals can take the stress out of money and actually support the practice and the life you're trying to build. Jami, I am so glad you're here.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm very excited to be here.
Amazing. Can you start us off by sharing a little bit about your journey into the financial world and how you ended up working with service-based entrepreneurs like therapists?
Yes, so I'm sure like a lot of self-employed people who are listening to this right now, I might not be the only one who started a career maybe in corporate or working for someone else. So I started my financial career working in marketing and advertising
Mhm,
as an accountant, a financial analyst, behind the scenes type role.
mhm,
And after 7 years of that, I decided, okay, I think I'm ready for something different. I didn't know what.
yeah,
I just was like, I'm ready for a move. I want more flexibility and freedom in my schedule. And I was not feeling connected to the work that I was doing.
mhm,
And I had my CPA designation, so I knew I could do something with that, but I was kind of over it at the time. So
mhm.
I did what a lot of people like to do is I took a nice little break. Had a little eat, pray, love moment. I went to Bali and I became a certified yoga instructor. So
Amazing.
yes, so I came back. I'm from Toronto. So I traveled for a bit. I got my yoga teacher training, 200 hour, and I came back and I thought, okay, great. Well, what am I going to do now to make money? Because it's gonna, take a lot for me to replace my CPA corporate salary.
Mhm,
And so, in the meantime, what I did was I just started taking on tax work because
mhm.
that was kind of people would say, "Oh, you're an accountant. Can you do my taxes for you?" That's what a
Yeah.
lot of people just associate. They just think all accountants, they know taxes. So it was an easy sell on my part. So I started a tax practice by accident, I would say, just for the sake of paying the bills until I figured out, did I want to do yoga teaching? What did I want to do?
Mhm,
And that's where I realized, holy crap, there's a real problem with what's going on in the
mm,
industry right now. I had
mhm,
all of these self-employed solo entrepreneurs coming to me, and they were like fraught with like anxiety and stress during tax season, and they didn't really know what was going on with their numbers. They didn't have a bookkeeping system, which to me felt really crazy because I came from corporate, right? So I came from kind of similar to you, Leanne, where I'm like, no, this is everything needs to be in order. What do you mean you don't
Yes.
have a bookkeeper? What do you mean you don't have a system? And
Mhm,
so that was what brought me to the starting the journey with Chill Books, which is like my online course where I teach all the essentials to essential steps in finance for every entrepreneur and bookkeeping and everything like that. Was that I started to help these entrepreneurs understand what they needed to do year round, how to
mhm,
do their bookkeeping. And
mhm,
that's kind of where the yoga teaching came into play too, because when you do your 200-hour yoga teacher training, you really learn um how to guide people from that place of more groundedness and letting them have their journey, letting them have their space. So I
Mhm.
kind of fused that a little bit along the way, and eventually that's how I created what is now Chillbooks. So that's my journey.
That's amazing. That's amazing. I don't think it's very often that you hear about accountants jumping into yoga training, but what an amazing combination. I
Yes.
love it.
Still do yoga, but I don't teach it. I taught it a little bit here and there, but now I'm still hanging out in the finance world because now I
Yeah.
get to hang out with entrepreneurs who are yoga teachers and stuff like that.
Right.
So yeah.
Oh, amazing, amazing. Well, let's start a little bit, with the big picture. Can you share with us what do therapists really need to know about their numbers beyond tax season?
Yes, I love how you're saying beyond tax season because I don't want people to think about finances as just their 1 year scramble for taxes.
Yes.
And so these are the core numbers that I want everyone to be knowing about their business. Number one is their income, their revenue, and their patterns. So do you have any kind of seasonality? Are there times that where it's quiet, or if there's no seasonality, like what is kind of like the minimum baseline of revenue that you tend to see coming in your business? Because
Mhm,
that's what's going to help you to plan for, maybe if you want to go on vacation for a few weeks, you kind of know what revenue you can expect when you're coming back, or it helps to tell the story of like, do you have enough money to cover your expenses? Which
mhm,
is the next part is your expenses. What expenses do you have in your business? Do you have like an office space you're renting? Where do you have, you have professional dues? Like, what do those look like so that
mhm,
you actually know, okay, how much money am I actually making in the business and how much money do am I able to take home and how much money do I have to invest in other tools and softwares and maybe hiring my first contractor. So
mhm,
knowing your income, knowing your expenses, what expenses you have that are fixed, what expenses that kind of come up at certain times of the year. And last but not least, the most important part, likely you started a practice not just because you love what you do, but also because you want to make a living. So, how much can you reliably take home from the business every month? So,
right.
income, expenses, and your pay are some real core numbers that you want to know. Mhm.
And would you say that those are like the first numbers that people should be looking at monthly, or are there other numbers that you think, that are really important to be looking at every month?
I would say those numbers are the first ones to think about monthly. Like
Right.
when I teach my clients in Chill Books, I teach them like to run a profit and loss report
Yeah.
every month. And
Yeah.
what that profit and loss report shows is their income and their expenses. So if anything, what I could add to that is like where your income is coming from. So
Yeah.
I know that sometimes, especially early on in your practice, you might have different streams of income. You might be working at one clinic and then you have your own, and you might maybe be even doing some teaching work or doing something else
Yeah.
alongside. So knowing even where your revenue is coming from is really helpful. Um, and yeah, and then on the expenses side of things is categorizing those expenses and knowing if it looks like, oh my gosh, I spent a lot of money in this specific category this month, what happened? So, but I
Right.
think to me, the monthly really comes down to looking at your profit and loss.
Mhm.
And and then if you want to add something to that, I don't think that this is necessarily as as much of a stress for healthcare practitioners, healthcare professionals, especially therapists and people who are in that service base, is looking at your cash flow. But I think that because you don't tend to have a lot of movement, you're not buying products and reselling them, the
Mhm.
cash flow part can kind of go alongside with the profit and loss for you guys.
Oh, that's so interesting because I was actually thinking about cash flow when I was asking you that question.
Yes.
And I mean, that's like a financial term. So if I, kind of like make it a little bit simpler, it's your budget, right? Like
Mm.
what did you plan to make this month? What did you plan to spend this month? And then looking at your profit and loss and going, okay, Am I over? Am I under? Where is that? And so, when you're taught, like, yes, I do think it's important though to think about your cash flow projections, right? Like, what
Mm.
were you planning? What did you anticipate you were going to make? What did you plan or anticipate you were going to spend? And then comparing that with your profit and loss. Would you agree with that?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I agree with that in terms of the budget is exactly. So I would call that part of it, I would call it budgeting. So you hit the nail on the head is like, what did you expect to happen? So
Yeah.
first step is like knowing what your current patterns are, what you're expecting and what your current patterns are. Then you can create a budget based on that.
Yes.
And then that's where you can say, okay, did I do well this month? Where was the excess? Where did I fall short?
Yes.
And and then in terms of cash flow, I just want to clarify that cash flow is very important for everybody. It's
Mhm.
just that I find with these businesses, if you're looking at your numbers on a month-to-month basis, um, I guess maybe in my mind, I'm thinking a lot of like sole proprietors and sole practitioners. So it
Yeah.
tends to they kind of go hand in hand if you're
Yes.
looking at
Yeah.
that. We don't need to like overcomplicate with like multiple sets of financial reporting. But if you feel like you're surprised about where like if you do feel like you don't have money in your bank account at the end of the month, then absolutely you need to be doing like a 6 month forecast to be like, okay, what money is going to be left in my bank account in 6 months if things go as I expect them to go. But
Right.
if you have a pretty predictable practice, then it might be overkill for you
Right.
because you
Yeah.
might have a healthy cash flow to begin with. But
Yeah.
it's more so, I'm talking to people. I'm used to talking to people in the early phases where things are not as complex. So if you have this and you have contractors and you have rent and you have everything like that,
Yeah.
yes, like I should say yes, absolutely. You want to be looking at that.
Yeah. Yeah.
Would you say most of your listeners are like where are they in terms of the size of their practice?
Oh, you know what? It's so varied, which I love. We have
Mm-hmm.
therapists who are just thinking about starting private practice. We have others who have launched their private practice and they're solo in their private practice, and then we have group practice owners or practice owners who have branched into other streams of revenue, whether that's courses, supervision, group therapy.
Amazing.
Right. So it's a really diverse community, which I absolutely love because everybody is very supportive and collaborative and just lovely.
Amazing. So for your group practice friends, those listeners, you guys definitely need to be doing cash flow. And for the ones that are just starting out, don't stress yourself out. Start looking at your core numbers and then the cash flow will kind of be more intuitive for you.
Right. Right. You mentioned creating some financial rituals and simple financial rituals, but can you share a few examples of what you're talking about? I haven't heard this term financial rituals. So where can therapists start with this, even if they're not numbers people?
Yes. So setting aside some time every week. That's what I would say first and foremost is just saying like on Fridays between 11 and 11:30 a.m. that's going to be my finance time. So having a set amount of time, set time slot in your week to be like, this is when I
Yeah.
think about the finances of my business,
Hmm.
is really key. And it doesn't have to be like if you're somebody who's been avoiding this, then you don't have to have this big plan about what you're going to do in that time because I'm sure you can find some things to do if you've been avoiding it. So just knowing that you have that time and then once that time is over, you get to move on to the next thing. So,
Right.
but what I would say based on that time, that time block that you set aside every week is to on a weekly basis, I would say you want to log into your bookkeeping system.
Hmm.
You want to look at your bank balances. If you are doing your own bookkeeping, match any payments that have come through, or if you have an integration, make sure that's running. Reviewing if anybody owes you any money,
Hmm.
knowing what's coming in, and just taking time to review where you're at. It's kind of like a dashboard to be like, what happened this week? Do I need to follow up on anything? Is anything weird? Am I missing a receipt for something that I need to put into my bookkeeping system or give to my bookkeeper? So
Yeah.
taking that time just to take a look at what's going on and make sure everything is in order because having that like financial rhythm every week helps you to reduce that avoidance part and also you feel confident whether you're doing your books yourself or working with someone else, you're plugged into what's going on with your numbers.
Yeah, and I love how, you were just mentioning QuickBooks here. And if we can just, talk about QuickBooks for a moment, because a lot of therapists use it. And I also hear from many that it feels overwhelming and they're not even sure that QuickBooks is helpful to them. So I'd
Yes.
love to know, how do you help people use QuickBooks in a more supportive way?
Oh my gosh, yes. Okay. So, and I totally understand because QuickBooks is not for everybody at all at depends what stage you're at and what you and if you're tech savvy and whatnot, but how I make QuickBooks be less overwhelming and actually more supportive is I teach people how to set it up properly because that is like the number one issue is
Right,
we purchase QuickBooks, the software promises us that it's going to make things easy. You're going to track things easily. It's going to be doing all this stuff for you. But no one actually takes the time to sit down and explain to you this is how you have to set it up in order to get those results that you want. So
right.
I'll teach people what are the back end things they need to do in the system one time, one and done, in
Yep.
order to get the outputs they want. So if they want to see their income streams separated by practice work versus teaching versus um maybe they're working for someone else on a different whatever, like it's so if
Mhm.
they want to see different income streams, if they want to see certain categories, if they I work with them in order to understand how to set those things up on the back end, and then next how to automate, because you can't automate things unless you actually have the setup. So then I teach them how to use things like rules, which will automatically categorize things, which will make that's where the supportiveness comes into play. Like, I don't ever want anyone to ever spend even half a second in their life categorizing a $1.50 bank transaction. You know what I mean? But it's got to be
Yes.
categorized. So like,
Yes.
so like, yeah, but I don't even want you to look at that. So like that's so setting up things like that to clear out that kind of stuff that is repetitive so
Yeah.
that really what's left is a tool that's going to say, okay, here's how you performed this month.
Yep.
Here's what we're missing receipts for. Can you find
Mm.
these receipts? And here's what your accountant needs at the end of the year. So those things become seamless once the setup is done right.
Oh, thank you so much, Jamie. I think, when I look at QuickBooks and all that it does, it is such, I mean, to me, and I'm not an accountant, so if I'm off base, please let me know. But it seems to me like it is such a robust system. Like there's so much
Mhm.
in there, there's so much it can do. And
Yeah.
um and it works for almost any business, which means there's gazillions of options and ways to do things, right? And I think that
Mhm.
for a solo practitioner or even a small business is what makes it feel overwhelming is that there's too many choices and I don't know which one to use. So, hearing you say it's in the setup, right? And having, some support in the setup so that it's set up for you, how you are going to do your books and your business makes so much sense.
Thank you. Yes, I think yeah, you totally, I feel like you totally understand exactly what's going on with that. And that's why in my course, I basically tell people, ignore the pop-ups. Don't listen to what it's telling you to do. Literally, I'm like, this is what you need to do. Ignore this, ignore this, ignore this. Like, because
Yeah,
that's the stuff that also makes it overwhelming is like you don't know. And when it comes to finances, people tend to get on edge. Like, I don't want to do something wrong, so I
right.
pay attention to everything, but
Right.
no,
Yeah.
it's not made for your specific situation. We need to customize it to make it supportive. Yeah.
Right. Oh, yeah. Yeah. Now, I mean, you just, hit on, yes, most people don't want to do things wrong and be offside, especially when it comes to tax time and the government.
Mhm.
But can you speak a little bit to, some of like what are some of those most common bookkeeping mistakes that you see therapists make? And then also tell us a little bit about what we can do to avoid those mistakes.
Mhm.
Mhm.
So, the first mistake is just not having a system or a process.
Mhm.
So
Right.
just kind of winging it through the year, and then at the end of the year, working with an accountant to try to clean it up, and it makes it very stressful, and your numbers will most likely be inaccurate. So
Yeah.
number one is is actually taking the time to decide, am I using Excel? Am I using QuickBooks? What am I doing
Yeah.
to manage things year round, and filling in those knowledge gaps there to make sure if
Mm.
you do use the system, learn how to use it. Now,
Mm.
within the system itself, I could say like one key thing is like not separating their business bank account from their personal bank account.
Mm,
So
yes.
that really
Mhm.
makes your bookkeeping messy.
Yes. Understatement.
Yes, yes, exactly. And adds more work to your plate. Like, I know a lot of people when they're first starting out, they're like, okay, but like, I have a handful of clients. Like, I'm using this money myself. Like, it's like, why do I need to separate the bank account? It's just going to cause more admin. But the truth is like having all of your transactions that have to do with your practice flowing through a separate bank account,
Yeah.
if you do literally nothing else that year, but that, you're still cutting down on your bookkeeping load at the end of the year.
Absolutely.
So separating those bank accounts is going to make everything easier month to month and at year end.
Hmm. Hmm.
And then another thing that I see specific to bookkeeping systems
Hmm.
is not doing bank reconciliations. So that is
Bane of my existence. Yes.
right? Yes, and that's why you have a bookkeeper, right, Leah? You're
Yes.
like, I'm not doing bank recs. This is ridiculous.
Yeah.
Yes, yes, yes. So, so what a bank reconciliation is for those who are listening and don't know is it's essentially just looking at your bank statement. So say you get your bank statement in a PDF or your credit card statement in a PDF doc, and comparing it to what's in your bookkeeping system and making sure that they match each other perfectly. That's really what it is. So
Yeah.
that's where you actually find mistakes. So, if you're kind of like using a system and you feel lost in it, doing the bank reconciliation is what's going to tell you, okay, I didn't duplicate anything. I didn't miss anything. That
Hmm.
gets caught during that period of time when you do that reconciliation.
Right. Right.
And it's a tool. The software actually has a module to help you do that. It's not like you have to manually do it. So, yeah.
Ah, nice. Yes, that is definitely something that should be automated, in my opinion.
Yeah. Right? Like, yes. Absolutely.
Yeah, yeah, and I think, yeah, the bank account piece, right? Having a separate bank account
Mhm.
is so important. I feel like, uh, you know, it's really easy as a sole proprietor and you're starting your private practice and it's small to not really recognize that you're starting a business. Right,
Mhm.
and I think that that is something that, people either overlook or they think, well, somewhere down the line when I have X, or I have, X number of clients or I'm, making X amount, then that's when I'll start treating this as a business, not recognizing that dollar one needs to be treated as a business,
Yes.
right?
Yes. Yes.
Yeah,
Absolutely. Mhm.
yeah.
Yep. And I'm guilty too. I mean, when I did I'm a CPA. When I had my first year in business,
Mhm.
to me, I was not looking at it as a real business because I was still figuring it out. So
Right.
I
Yeah.
had part of the year's income was from my job. So I had a T4 for that and I
Yeah.
paid taxes for that. I had a consulting gig that I had taken on for a few months, and then it was tax season, and I didn't have a system.
Right.
But I thought, "Ugh, I don't have that many. I have one client from the consulting gig. I don't have many expenses." But then sure enough, when it came to doing my taxes that year, I was like, oh my God, I have to gather all this stuff for my car because I use my car. Oh, my home office, all that stuff. Oh yeah, I paid for my Microsoft Office subscription. And all of a sudden I was like, okay, you know what? This is ridiculous. It's a full business. I have to file it like a business, even though I had
Yeah.
one client. So
Right.
that's me as a CPA who this stuff doesn't stress me out. So
Right.
adding that level of just not understanding to it is really like to take it serious from day one from that first dollar because the thing that makes bookkeeping the most stressful is not the actual bookkeeping itself, but it's when it's left to pile up.
Yes. Jamie, thank you so much for your vulnerability and, for sharing that, even as a CPA, right?
Mm. Yeah, because
Because I think that like people don't intentionally do that to get themselves in that spot when it comes to tax time. Like it's very, it's very common. And so, to hear you say that even as a CPA that happened to you, I just want to take a moment to like normalize that for people. This is really common, but this is why you and I are having this conversation right now is to, hopefully help people avoid that mistake and avoid that headache, when it comes to the end of the year. And, it's just so, so, so important. So thank you for that.
of course.
I'd love, for anyone who is listening to this, who has been avoiding their books or maybe not realizing that, oh, I do have a business, and now maybe they're feeling behind.
Yes, I'm sorry, by the way.
Because it's the beginning of December.
Yes, yes,
Um,
yes.
what would you say is a small but powerful first step that they could take this week?
Yes. So, small but powerful first step is to put that time in your calendar.
Hmm. Hmm.
And so put that time in your calendar and show up for your finances this week. And if you need something to actually do during that time, if you're not like if you don't know what you should be doing, then I would download my free guide. I have a free guide. It's called the Solopreneur Write-Off Guide, and then there is a whole list of all your write-offs, so you can start making sure that you're gathering all of those and organizing all of those for tax season.
Amazing. Yes. Start it before it's due.
Yes, exactly. And I know
Love
you
it.
asked me for one thing, but
Yeah.
if one more, basically that, or if your bank accounts aren't separated, I know it's December and you're tempted to go back and fix a bunch of stuff, but separate those bank accounts now. Just do that now. That's a good step to do during that time block as well.
Yeah. Yeah, and I'll just, tag on there that, many people feel that, business bank accounts are really expensive with service fees, but we've got a couple of Canadian banks that actually make it easy for small businesses. Like Bank of Montreal has an absolutely free, no service charge, small business digital bank account. And I believe it's RBC that has one that is like super low cost, maybe $5 a month. So
You're
if
correct.
you're thinking that this is going to be a massive business expense to have a business bank account, no, it's not. It's not a big business
Mhm.
expense.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. And I think there's also, I think Bank just came out with their low cost I don't know how much it is, but I believe it's low or zero cost. So
Right.
lots of options. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Well, Jamie, thank you so much. This has been such a calming and confidence boosting conversation.
Absolutely.
So many therapists feel intimidated by their numbers. And I think that, you've helped make this feel simple, supportive, and totally doable, even for folks who've been avoiding their books for months. So, can you just take a moment before we go and tell us a little bit more about your solopreneur write-off guide. What is it and what are they going to get?
Yes, so in that guide, it's completely free and it gives you a list of all the common things that you can write off as a solopreneur in Canada. I think it's like 40. Now I'm like, is it 40? 40 items that you can go through and check it off and see what applies to you. And it also talks about what a write-off is. So I know there could even be confusion around that. So you'll get clear what it is and how to look for it, and then you can start just going down the list and gathering everything.
Amazing, amazing. Well, that takes so much of the guesswork out, right? I often hear, from people, is this a write-off? Can I write this off? Right? So to have a
Yes.
checklist that you can just go down and be like, yep, 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 right? Check it off. It's fantastic. Thank
Make sure you're not leaving any money on the table.
Right,
Yes.
right, right. Thank you so much, Jamie, for being here. It's been a pleasure having you in this conversation.
You. Thank you for having me, and thank you for those who are listening. And I promise you, you can get caught up and you can manage this yourself.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And to all of our listeners, if you are ready to build a private practice that supports your life now and later, come visit our website, buildyourprivatepractice.ca, for resources, programs, and tools designed for therapists just like you. So thanks so much for tuning in, and I'll see you next time.
Thanks so much for tuning in to the Build Your Private Practice podcast. If today's episode resonated with you, I'd love it if you'd subscribe, leave a review, or share it with a fellow Canadian therapist who needs this. And remember, the work you do matters. Keep showing up, keep holding space, and keep building a practice that works for you. If you're looking for practical tools or support to grow your practice with more clarity and confidence, head to buildyourprivatepractice.ca. There's lots waiting for you there. I'll see you next time.